Hey, my name's Walter Holmes. Been around the military for quite a few years. In fact, I ran around the armory as a kid. 54 years in uniform this year, and I had the good fortune to command the Airborne Regiment, 1992, and that was the last full colonel command. So 77 was the start of the Canadian Special Service Force, and I think the start of the real strong association between the 1st Special Service Force Association and the Canadian Special Service Force, and indeed Canadian Airborne Special Forces in general. The first guy who came up for Canadian Airborne Regiment mess dinner was Bill Story. And Bill Story, Canadian, Royal Winnipeg Rifle, I do believe, joined the force, one of the originals in Helena. Met and married an American girl, stayed in the States afterwards. So he came up as the executive director to a mess dinner when invited, and we sort of hit it off and became close friends, and that friendship was sustained until his passing a couple of years ago. The other guy was Herb Pepard, and I didn't know Herb really all that well. Herb came to an event in Petawawa, and I happened to ride the bus back to Ottawa with him, so he allowed that he had written a book called The Lighthearted Soldier, and he promised to send me a copy. And not only sent me a copy of the book endorsed, but he also sent me a personal letter. And I'll read you the letter because I think it's important to understand the context of who this guy was. If you read the book, you'll know that he was a bit of a rebel, but the letter kind of puts the icing on the cake. It was written on the 8th of September, 1999. Dear Walter, I toured your camp as a member of the 1st Special Service Force Association in August. I met you on the bus going back to Ottawa from camp. I asked you for your address because I wanted to send you my book. On reading the book, you'll find you don't want your men to follow my lead because I was not an ideal soldier. However, you'll at least get a feel for the history of the times. All the best, Herb Pepard. So Herb was quite a character. But, they were all very much individualists. And that's what made them such a success as an organization. They were a team, but they could also operate independently from each other. But, there's lots of them. There's Cy Mermelston, who was a great friend of Lana and I. He died last year. He lived in Florida, but a great friend and a great guy. And, of course, the last guy I'll talk about briefly is Sam McGee. Sam was a bit of a legend, or at least he'd like to think he was. He was an interesting character. I think he actually became a Perry after the war in the regular force. I think he retired as a sergeant major. I'm not quite sure about that. And of course, I knew Jack Callowhill, Jimmy Summersides, Charlie Mann, these Canadian sort of legends through CAFA, Canadian Airborne Force Association, as well as through reunions and various other. So yeah, there's a lot of good memories there. It's unique because of the annual nature of the reunions. It's unique because of who they were. A Canada-U.S. force of commandos who did things that nobody else could do. And, the memory and legacy of the veterans that needs to be kept alive. And as long as you've got somebody standing there as a sentinel, guarding the memories of those who have gone before, then their memory will persist. In other areas, I think social media is also doing a very good job of keeping people in contact and allowing them to tell their stories from their heart and from their perspective.